All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. By now, you should know that you're actually in the water session. And my name is Kevin Cilliers. I'm the Regional Manager for the National Cleaner Production Centre based in Durban. So travelled in all the way from there. Hearty welcome to all of you from NCPC. Welcome to our Industrial Efficiency Conference. It's a biannual thing that we started a number of years back. And it seemed to be growing in interest, and we're quite overwhelmed with the response we've actually had today. More specifically, welcome to our water track for the day. Our water track will actually be broken up into two sessions. We've got this session, it'll talk about water security and industry, and then we hope to bring to you a little bit more practical demonstration of what can be achieved in the afternoon, where we'll be speaking more around the case studies and how industry and companies have gone about to address and face up to some of the challenges around water. Okay, so in terms of the program today, let me just get some formalities out the way, and hopefully technology works with me. Right. We are all very keen to see you guys get involved. I hope you've all linked up to our app. If you haven't, we do have an app. You can go to the Google Play Store, make use of the free Wi-Fi network that we actually have here. Find on the Play Store, or depending what application you actually use, the equivalent if it's not Android. But you will then look for the NCPC conference app. If you load that up, it'll actually give you everything you need to know about the conference. It'll give you an indication of the speakers. It'll give you an indication of the program. It'll tell you where the venues are. Everything you need to know about this. So we're looking at this to be interactive. So please play your part and have a little bit of fun. And hopefully we'll be able to also share a bit of knowledge with you and some interesting facts today during the course of our presentations. So I've mentioned that. This is just basically the basic steps if you wanted to actually log on to our app. Okay. If anybody's got any hassles with it, please if we have a break, and when we have a break, please feel free to catch one of the staff, one of us NCPC team in the room, and we'll be more than willing to help you link it up if you haven't quite managed to do so. Okay, you can also do tweets. We've got the hashtag NCPC conference, and you can actually submit any comments, thoughts, share with your mates, and let's get this whole concept of RECP, water efficiency, out there in the open and start changing the world. Okay. Right. I've introduced myself. We've got 3 speakers today, and I'm hoping that we will get a diversity of topics and concepts that will be covered on. We will be probably shaking up the order of the speakers a bit today. We've got one speaker that's actually flying in today, so we will have them hot off the press. So we're also hoping there's no cloud banks in our Temba. They do get you on time. But other than that, we will be looking at from Denmark, all the way from Denmark. They will be speaking about hydrophobic membrane technology for industrial and agricultural water supply. And this is talking to about what can be done, what solutions can be applied to actually help us secure our water availability going into the future. And then we will have from Andre Robbins, will be speaking a little bit about the public-private partnerships and how these can be leveraged to do good things in the space of water efficiency in your organization. And I think he will be sharing a case study from their Mossel Bay plant. And then lastly, but it will actually be firstly on our speaking list, will be Ash Seetal. He's from the CSR Water Centre, but I'll introduce him a bit more about him before he starts speaking. So that just gives you a rundown, and then hopefully all of that should take us through to lunchtime, and then you can actually enjoy some drink, some refreshments, and hopefully a good meal. Okay. So I think that's got that out the way from my side. Just to maybe share a little bit with you about NCPC. I think most of us have sat in our plenary session this morning, so I think our director gave quite a good overview, a rather funny one as well, in terms of what NCPC does. So I don't want to regurgitate all of that. What I wanted to just share and say to you today is that the water track and the water focus for the NCPC is not anything new. We've been going at this since 2016. In fact, at our one of our previous conferences in 2015, we actually birthed the idea of starting up a water program, or a dedicated water program in the National Cleaner Production Centre. So here we are today. That wasn't done on its own. In 2016, we made the decision to go ahead, kick off a water project, industrial water efficiency project in the centre, and that we have seen grow from strength to strength. It just so happened at the time that coincided with a relationship and a strategic water partnership cooperation agreement signed between the Kingdom of Denmark and South Africa through Department of Water and Sanitation, where the two countries have opted and agreed to try and collaborate around issues on water. And that was initiated as I said, in 2016. It was a partnership that was set up for a first phase, a period of 3 years. That has now expired at the beginning of this year, and the excitement and interest on our water track has remained in that, to the extent that the Danish and South African counterparts have agreed and signed into place an extension of that relationship, which should take us into 2022. So we're actually in the phases of now trying to develop and roll out a program for the second phase in water activities in the centre, along with our partners, the Danish, and with the Department of Water and Sanitation. The Danish, through their side, is facilitated through the Royal Danish Embassy based here in Pretoria, and we actually have their input from their water councillor, who's been very instrumental in supporting the centre and helping us to roll out water efficiency in and across the country. In terms of that, I've mentioned that, the partnership will continue till 2022, and really what's happened in our, up to now in the water track is that there's been some initial engagement, firstly around looking at trying to understand a bit better what the water legislation and policy framework and landscape looks like in South Africa. We've had some engagements around that to get a better and broader understanding. We've also engaged with selected stakeholders from industry, from the consulting fraternity, as well as some of the government departments, around trying to understand a bit better what kind of water skill sets are perhaps missing, that the NCPC could fill a gap there. And then thirdly, we took it into real application, where we actually engaged actively with some companies to actually run some water assessments in selected companies. All in the aim and idea of trying to understand and get a sense of what kind of opportunities might exist there. And I think you saw some of the stats that maybe were shown up this morning in our main centre presentation. But it's still a long road, it's still early days, but I think what we've gathered and collected so far from the first phase of this partnership agreement has been that we've now have got some sense that this is a worthy exercise to continue and follow on. And we're now looking to push into the area of how do we get implementation to happen. So this is now our next phase. Will be placing a strong emphasis on trying to push companies over the edge to make that commitment to invest in implementing water efficiency technologies and interventions. And then also with a specific focus on looking at particular technologies that could be brought in. I mentioned the relationship between South Africa and Denmark, and that's a rather important one because the relationship is expected to allow sharing between both counterparts and both ways, not only from Denmark's way into South Africa. I think there's a lot of issues that we deal with on a daily basis in water that Denmark is not aware of and are starting to pick up some signals and signs in their systems. But by the same token, there's a lot of technologies that South Africa haven't really embraced all that well, and that Denmark is very familiar with and are looking to try and facilitate whether they can assist us by making those kind of technologies available to us. So that's, for a large part, the reason why we're actually engaged and linking up with this. I think everyone can agree that water is certainly very, very high on the agenda. It should be. I would echo Alf's comments this morning that was shared in that plenary discussion around energy. We are also seeing a struggle to get companies on board to line up and actually embrace and take on the water efficiency game. And that's something that we are looking at different ways of how we can be more innovative and make that case study more evident and obvious to the companies that they take that leap of faith. All right. In terms of what's going to happen next is I'd like to think about introducing our first speaker. I'm going to introduce Mr. Ash Seetal. He will be speaking on supporting industry through the newly established CSR Center. And maybe that's just something I should perhaps elaborate a little bit on. As you may or may not know, the CSR has been through a recent restructuring and rethinking around its strategy. There's a strong emphasis and focus on pushing into the industry side of things and looking at how we can start bringing more innovation into the engagements and to the research and to the activities that the CSR undertakes. In that rehashing of the strategy, it's also meant there's been a bit of reshaping within the CSR. And if you look at CSR now, you might actually see that the structure of the CSR looks a little bit different in terms of clusters and divisions, and that have now been introduced into the CSR's organogram and structure. So just to put the picture in place for you, the National Cleaner Production Center sits within CSR within a cluster called the Smart Places cluster. And within that cluster, we have a number of different programs sitting within there. One is the hosted programs, and that comprises the National Cleaner Production Center, as well as the National Foundry Technology Network. In addition to that, there's a number of other groups that sit within this cluster. One including the newly established Water Center. That's where ASH fits in. And we also have other entities like, for example, the Energy Center and various other coastal and marine and environmentally based groups. So just so that you understand how NCPC fits in CSR and the fact that we also have Ash speaking about it. And this is now the big link between NCPC applying practically on the ground in a shorter, perhaps, term. And we have the link with the CSR research and development side that could look at bringing the R&D into the space that we play in and look for the longer term, bigger picture solutions that they could start working on and developing. Okay, so without further ado, let me just share a little bit about ASH with you. And this is now where technology meets brains, hopefully. Okay. So you can see I have the app. So Ashwin Seetal, he's trained as a transdisciplinary scientist and is a multidisciplinary specialist with extensive and strategic and operations experience in water, natural resources, and its associated sectors. He's been around for a while, all of 38 years apparently. He has been involved in higher education. He's had a spell in government, and he's also now looking in the business and research area, and has honed his insights in that area more recently with his role in the CSIR. In addition to a compelling ability to lead multidisciplinary project teams, he is a consummate strategist, communicator, negotiator, facilitator in the analysis and resolution of complex technical, social, political, business, and management issues. That's quite a bit there we've got. His passion is systems and analysis, strategy formulation through to intervention implementation. Okay. So he has contributed to changes in the water sector in South Africa in various disciplines, including laboratory analytical services, sector and organizational change, legislative reforms, so it's good to have and understand that, as well as in the implementation in the sectors. Okay. So he has shared many of his experiences with developed and developing countries, so we also have that understanding and sensitivity to some of the experiences that are faced in countries lesser fortunate than us. And he's also been involved in undertaking focused sector interventions or reforms in the capacity as an advisor and expert. So I think it's somebody that's very well positioned to perhaps share with us a little bit about the insights of what the CSIR's new water center can actually offer to industry. Ash, could I invite you up?